What's good? It's Woog. We've got Xander Zayas, 21 wins and 0 losses, taking on Jorge Garcia, 33 wins and 4 losses. This is for the vacant WBO 154-pound title, super welterweight title, or junior-middleweight title. This is for that vacant belt, which was vacated by Sebastian Fundora before the rematch between Fundora and Tim Tszyu, leaving Fundora with just the WBC title. So yeah, this is actually a title fight, and we've got a hot prospect in, well, now contender, title contender, in Xander Zayas, who's only 22 years old. His career has been super well handled. I think he's managed by Peter Kahn, so he's been on Top Rank for the past few years. This fight between Zayas and Garcia is actually supposedly the final Top Rank fight on ESPN. And I think it was Dan Rayfield who pointed this out on Twitter or X, that after this fight in the United States, there will be no more boxing on TV or cable, basically only on Prime or DAZN. So think about what that means. This is like the first time since I believe the 1940s where in the US you can't get boxing on regular TV anymore. So this exit by Top Rank from ESPN, or rather ESPN no longer having interest at this time in broadcasting boxing, this is a big deal as I see it, just in terms of the boxing economy, the boxing environment. Yes, a lot has changed since Turkey has entered the game, but we've got to see where this all goes, because that just shows you how much of a dwindling commodity in the sphere of content, in the universe of content, how niche boxing is becoming. But yeah, you've got Xander Zayas, who at 22 years old is looking really good in the ring. Like, he's got a sweet science approach, but he's not one of these sweet science fighters who tries to slow the action down behind a jab. No, he is jab heavy, but he's an inverted southpaw, so he gets busy with that lead hand. Jabs, hooks, hooks to the body, really good lead hand, but he throws a lot of punches too. He's very active. In fact, he has yet to encounter a round where his opponent outlands him. Think about that. At this stage of his career, 21 fights in, he has not been outlanded in any round of his career at this point. And his opponent here is fighting for a title because he upset a top 10-ish 154-pounder in Charles Conwell. Now, Zayas and Garcia are about to fight for this vacant title, but I really wonder if this fight would have been able to be made if it was Charles Conwell, as the favorite against Garcia, would have beaten Garcia. Basically, if Charles Conwell didn't get upset by Jorge Garcia, would we have gotten Xander Zayas versus Charles Conwell? I kind of have my doubts whether Top Rank and Golden Boy would have agreed to put Zayas and Charles Conwell, two good prospects / contenders, in the ring with each other at this stage. But because Jorge Garcia, who's got 4 losses, pulled off the upset, I think that this fight was a lot easier to make between Zayas and Garcia than it would have been for Zayas versus Charles Conwell. Just my belief on that. Although I would have loved to have seen Xander Zayas versus Charles Conwell. I mean, this division is so stacked. You know, you've got the champions, Sebastian Fundora, Bakram Murtazaliev. Terrence Crawford just vacated his WBA title, so we'll see who picks that up. You've got Virgil Ortiz, Israel Madrimov, Sergey Bohachuk. If Jermell Charlo comes back, you've got Jermell Charlo. I don't know what's going to happen with Tim Tszyu going forward. He said he's going to fight on. We'll see what's left of him after these 3 recent losses. You've got Erickson Lubin, Jesus Ramos. You've got so many really good fighters at 154. You've got Boots Ennis entering the mix. You've got Keith Thurman, who I wouldn't be surprised if he got the next title shot against Sebastian Fundora. We'll see how that all shakes out. And you've got guys like Brian Mendoza and Magomed Kurbanov, you know, still in the mix. You've got a lot of good fighters at 154. And this fight between Zayas and Jorge Garcia is going to answer who the next WBO champion is in this division. So Xander Zayas is rightfully the betting favorite in this one. He's a -450 though, with Jorge Garcia as a +375. So these aren't totally lopsided odds. I feel like the odds makers are respecting Jorge Garcia's abilities here and his chances of winning. You know, often in these types of fights where you've got a buzzing, kind of hyped prospect against their opponent, it's often like a minus 800, and a plus 650, something like that. But no, minus 450, plus 375. So he's the favorite, but he's not like a gargantuan favorite. And I think that it's because of what we saw from Jorge Garcia Perez, if you want to use his full name, against Charles Conwell, where you've got Conwell, who's a shorter fighter for the division, he likes to trade hooks, mid-range and in close. He's got good timing. He's got pretty good hand speed, not blazing hand speed. He's got good power, and he's an accurate puncher. But when Conwell fought Jorge Garcia, Garcia was a lot taller than him. He's got a lot more range, a lot more reach, at least when you look at the guys in the ring. I haven't seen his reach on paper, but Garcia was a much taller fighter, and he leads with power shots. He was throwing like blistering punches to the body, and he surprisingly, as Conwell wanted to come forward because he was having some difficulty on the outside, and again, Garcia was throwing these really nice body shots, which then enabled him to start hitting Conwell up top with some straight right hands and some left hooks up top. Conwell started to come in, and then Garcia was surprisingly able to throw nice counters while stepping back. Now, this fight was a pretty muddy fight for a lot of it. It was a close and competitive fight where Jorge Garcia won via split decision. It was like 115 to 113 on all three judges' scorecards, with two of them giving it to Garcia and one giving it to Conwell. So it really couldn't get much closer. These were also pretty tough rounds to score, but there was a lot of infighting where there were just several punches to the side and back of the head. And I felt like Conwell was actually initiating most of those kind of near rabbit punch in the clinch exchanges. Now, the referee had a tough time trying to officiate that, because technically when he started throwing the punch, it might have been a legal punch, but by the time Garcia or Conwell, when Garcia would try to return the favor, would start turning their head, then it becomes an illegal punch or a borderline illegal punch. But there was so much of that where they were nearly chest to chest, throwing those little short shots in the clinch at the sides and backs of each other's heads. It was constant throughout this fight. So I don't really know how to score that. And Conwell was doing a lot of good punching. Like, it seemed like he was landing the cleaner shots, but for every one clean shot up top Conwell would land, Garcia would land 2 or 3 nice ones to the body. So again, this was a really close fight. This was not a lopsided or a blowout type of fight by any stretch. It really could have gone either way. But it did look to me like in spots, especially in the second half of the fight, because it was pretty even, I would say, through 6 rounds, but Garcia looked like he started winning more of the rounds late. But I think that Conwell won a couple of those last 6 as well. But it was a close 12 rounder. And the work rate by Jorge Garcia, especially again to the body, looked like it was starting to make Conwell react to that damage. Like, he would rip Conwell with a couple body shots, and then Conwell would let his hands go again in the clinch. So tough fight to score, but Jorge Garcia definitely exceeded expectations. Conwell was a substantial favorite there. So Zayas, again, is the betting favorite, but style-wise, Zayas is a lot different than Charles Conwell. Zayas is 5'10". Charles Conwell is listed at 5'9", but in the ring, he looks a little more, maybe 5'8"-ish. Now, Jorge Garcia is 6 feet, so he's still going to be a couple inches taller than Xander Zayas, but Zayas also has a 74-inch reach, so he's got pretty long arms. And again, he gets busy with that lead hand. So style-wise, Zayas is a lot different than Charles Conwell. Again, Conwell likes to mix it up on the mid-range. He could box on the outside, don't get me wrong, but Zayas is a lot more jab-heavy than Charles Conwell, or I at least expect him to be against this common opponent. I think Zayas can, to some degree, control Garcia from the outside with that lead hand a lot better than Charles Conwell was able to do so. Charles Conwell, again, was making this a mid-range to inside fight, largely because of Garcia's reach and height. And again, Garcia, he doesn't jab a ton. He leads with power punches to the body, straight right hands. He's looking to get the power punches go, but he will also have little small sections of inactivity as he's kind of doing some picture taking, as they say. Zayas is almost constantly throwing something, or at least throwing a feint. So I think that Xander Zayas is going to have a much less difficult time being able to control the pace, control the tempo. Again, he doesn't like to slow the action down. If anything, I think he might be pushing a pace on Jorge Garcia. And if he's able to effectively keep that jab hand out there, I see Jorge Garcia having a lot of trouble navigating that. And Xander Zayas actually has really good defense, especially when he's not throwing punches. But even when he's coming forward, he's catching a lot of shots. He's slipping some, but he's catching a lot of them and rolling with others. So he's an excellent defender. However, when he starts letting his punches go, especially when he starts letting the power punches go, if you're willing to throw with him, you could catch him with straight shots or hooks. Like even look at his last opponent, Slava Spalmer, who at the time was trained by Roy Jones Jr. Spalmer got some nice shots in and made it to, I think, the 9th round in a 10-round fight, got stopped in the 9th. But he did have some success landing some pretty nice shots on Xander Zayas. Again, you have to be willing to throw with him, because if it's a jabbing Xander Zayas or a Xander Zayas who's like standing there but not throwing punches, he's a tough guy to connect with. But when he starts building confidence and starts piling on the offense, letting his hands go, if you are able to throw with him, you could do some damage. So I actually think that Jorge Garcia, as Xander Zayas starts kind of marching him down, controlling him with the jab, you'll see, I believe, Jorge Garcia start exchanging with Zayas, going to Zayas' body especially. Now, can he dampen Xander Zayas' activity with any of that work to the body? That remains to be seen, and I haven't seen enough evidence of that. And again, Jorge Garcia has lost 4 times, by decision, basically. He's able to be outboxed. And if anybody's able to do that sweet science, control you with the jab type of boxing from the outside, I think that is Xander Zayas. Now, granted, we haven't seen him really step up. I think the best opponent that he's had, at least on paper, is former belt holder Patrick Teixeira. But I think his best days are well behind him, Teixeira's. So I don't make too much of Xander Zayas winning that 10-round decision over Teixeira. So I don't even know whether to really classify this as a step-up opponent. I mean, this is for a title, and it's a guy who just beat Charles Conwell. So in that sense, yes. But I think that when these guys get in the ring and you start seeing Xander Zayas going through the gears, as they say in the UK, I think that you'll start seeing him separate himself on the cards from Jorge Garcia. So I'm actually going to go with Xander Zayas to win this fight via decision. I think Jorge Garcia might have some interesting moments. He might have, periods where he starts letting his hands go, might even start landing effectively and cleanly on Xander Zayas. And he does have some good power, like 26 out of Garcia's 33 wins have come via stoppage. On the other hand, only 13 of Xander Zayas' 21 wins have come via stoppage. So Zayas doesn't have a ton of power, but he's got enough to really get your respect and to make you respect his punches and even his feints, the threat of punches. So I see Xander Zayas outclassing Jorge Garcia here. And I see a lot of that coming from that lead hand. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one. So basically, I see Xander Zayas coming out of this fight with the WBO 154-pound title. And we'll see where Top Rank land their content next. Now that this ESPN Top Rank relationship is apparently done, we'll see what happens with Top Rank, because nothing is set in stone yet. There's some unanswered questions in Top Rank's viability, their broadcasting going forward. So stay tuned, but I think that Xander Zayas is about to be the 154-pound WBO champ. And because he's the buzzing name, the name who's been growing a reputation, he's like a surging Puerto Rican. And he's going against an unheralded fighter who has pretty much made his name by pulling off an unexpected upset. If this fight is even close, like if it looks like a 115, 113 style fight, 114, 114, I expect Xander Zayas to get that decision as well. So yeah, I don't see Jorge Garcia stopping Xander Zayas, and I don't see him boxing well enough to win a decision here. I see Xander Zayas as the better boxer, proving just that in the ring against Jorge Garcia. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Zayas versus Garcia in the comments. And how do you see Xander Zayas shaping up against some of the elite at 154? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.